Okay, so this is a bit embarrassing. If all goes well, you'll probably be seeing this around the 15th of the month or so, which is great, but it's not exactly what I had planned when I first started this channel about a year ago. Yeah, a whole year, and I'm just now getting around to it. To be honest, it's kind of on brand, but there are a few factors that add up to starting now, and some of those factors I do want to dive into a little bit more. Point blank and straight up, the biggest reason that things never got up and running was because of other obligations I've had in life that I figured were more important. And in truth, a lot of those obligations are still ongoing to this day. Not too long after I made this channel, I made the decision to shelf it because I figured that doing more adult, doing more mature options for a career seemed like a better use of my time. Well, I'll expand on that in a little bit. To be honest, the driving force behind that decision was fear. I'm a fairly private person, all things considered, and the idea of being in the public eye is a bit intimidating, but the fear doesn't come from being outed or unmasked or anything. More so, the fear stems from turning into a projection of the persona that I have set aside for the channel and being more that than it is being me. I have a big personal issue with people pleasing, and I've been struggling with it for the better half of my life. And of all things, I didn't want that to creep into this project above all else. I'm doing this to learn how to better express myself, so it would be a lost cause if I just ended up posturing for a vanity project versus speaking how I really feel about the topics that I'm going to cover in the future. I've gone down that road before. I've already learned enough lessons from it the first handful of times. That being said, everything that I have planned for this channel doesn't follow a strict roadmap or guideline because every topic was born from a daydream at some point or another throughout the day or throughout my days. And the name of the channel reflects it, as it loosely translates to cloud brain in Esperanto. This is probably about the fourth time that I've tried to make content. I mean, I've tried streaming before, but it didn't really pan out because it felt too performative for my taste. The general rule is that you have to make your channel appealing for people to want to spend time watching you do whatever it is that you do. And when I first started, I tried to imitate a lot of the bigger names on the platform at the time, but it didn't fit. It didn't feel like me. It felt more like I was putting on a show, even though that's the basis of Twitch in itself. The streams eventually devolved into me silently playing the game that I was focused on at the time and checking the chat log every now and again just to see that nobody was there. But in that time, I was more content with what I was doing because it felt more natural and more me in a sense. Now, that attempt was before I learned that video essay YouTube usually makes scripts before they actually record. For the longest time, I thought that most of the creators were just going off rip as soon as they hit the camera. And for some of my favorite creators, that is still the case. But it took a while for me to understand that I didn't have to play a character to catch people's attention. It took a while to feel that the quiet and calm me was good enough to speak my mind and be heard. But I also struggled with motivating myself to do it as well. The mature decisions were just to keep my head down, focus on work, focus on my family, and not allocate time for something that didn't have a tangible or physical value up front. And I realized how much of a trap that kind of mindset is. So one day, today, I thought about the same four words that always invoked a major change in my life. You know what? Fuck it. It's really easy to overwhelm yourself with the perceived pressure of a task until you actually hop in and do it. And viewing the project from an outside perspective, it really takes away from the paralysis of wondering how to do things the right way, the first way. I want to get to the point where the anxiety that I feel trying to do this can be referenced at a future date as a silly roadblock that I impose on myself in the very beginning, because that's all it is. The only thing that was stopping me from doing this was me and time. But once you want something bad enough, you make time for it. And I decided that I was going to make time for this and let everything else come to me when it comes to me. And it might not work, and it might fail, and it might go nowhere. But the lesson to be learned here is that in order to swim, you have to be okay with the possibility of sinking. So sitting on this channel for a whole year and waiting for the right moment to be ready to dive in got old very quickly. But sadly not quick enough. I know this isn't a super polished video, but it's important enough that I have to bypass my perfectionism to hit the ground, even if I'm not hitting it running. So as far as the channel goes, the topics will be kind of broad, but it's mostly going to be things that I find or have found interesting that I just wanted to expand on. It's not about the numbers anymore. It's not about my online presence anymore. Now it's just for the life of it, for the fun of it. I could have been a year in by now, with all the experience needed to get to the point where I thought I should have been starting out in the first place. So while the range of topics that I'll be talking about may be broad, there is one video I specifically want to make. It's the video idea that inspired me to make the channel outright, but I know that it's going to be a while before I get to it because of the magnitude of the argument that I'm trying to make. So that's going to be much, much later down the line. So in the meantime, I'm just going to focus on practicing speech, editing, and all that jazz until I start getting into the groove and getting comfortable with it. But if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you for sticking around with my rant. I promise that I won't be doing this very often. Maybe as channel updates just to see how far I've come from the last time I've done it, but all in all, they won't be important in the grand scheme of things. But I do appreciate you sticking around. I hope you get at least a small amount of entertainment out of what I can bring to the table. With that being said, thanks once again, and I'll catch you next time.